Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is episode 3 of Gills in the Pub. And as you can see, we've got the band back together from the pilot episode back in the summer. I've been joined this evening by Reece and by Jack to talk about the last 48 hours at the football club, which was that harrowing 4-0 defeat at home to Ipswich Town on Saturday afternoon. I saw all of it. Jack saw none of it. Reece saw about 25 minutes of it and then made the correct decision probably to leave. Obviously, the news then broke Sunday, 4 p.m, that Steve Evans had been released from his contract by mutual consent. I think that's posh for sacked, but you can take that as you will. So tonight, obviously, we're going to be talking about that. What led to his demise, reasons behind it, who we want to come in as the new permanent manager, who we think will come in as the new permanent manager, and obviously thoughts on the fact that Steve Lovell will be assisted by Alex McDonald this coming Saturday against Burton Albion. How are you, gents? It's been a fun season.
Yeah, good, mate. I've actually got a beer this time.
I think I remember, when was it we did the first one? I think if people listen back to it now, I think we all said there was still no doubt that we were in no danger of getting relegated this season. We might be having a different conversation this evening.
Yeah, definitely.
September, that was.
Yeah, it was August, September, wasn't it? Yeah, it was right at the end. I think it was Bank Holiday weekend. So that's a good few months ago. And I think we've only won 2 league games since then. So that tells you of the plight that we're currently in. Obviously, Saturday was as bad as I've seen us under Steve Evans. I'll come to you, Reece, obviously, because you saw at least some of it. But I described it at half-time as relegation performance. It was that bad. It wasn't even schoolboy defending that first 15, 20 minutes. We were 3-0 down in a flash of an eye. The biggest concern for me that everyone just looked half-arsed, like they weren't even that bothered. There was no fight to even attempt to get back in the game. It was just that we just looked resigned to the fact that we'd lost the game, and maybe with it that the season was going. Do you think there was anything in it? Maybe the players knew Steve was going. Has he lost the dressing room? Can you put your finger on why it was so bad at the weekend?
Well, had we even turned over the week before at MK Dons, I might have understood it, but it seemed like there was, we'd not played for a couple of weeks, and I didn't see any of the game. I didn't go. I don't know if we was fortunate to get the point, whether it was well earned, but it was a clean sheet and it was a point on the board. So I don't think anyone did see that come in. Yeah, admittedly, I've not been going to Gills as long as you two have been, but I would go as far as saying that in terms of the first half an hour of a game, that's quite possibly the worst I've ever seen. And like you say, whether there are factors behind it that the players had given up with Evans, whether they knew he was going to be leaving, I've defended the players a lot this season. I think they've been put into a difficult situation at times, but it was a spineless and shameful first half an hour at the weekend. And like you say, whatever Evans has done, said, tried to set them up, there was no way he'd have told them to defend the way they did. The first goal, I think it's Tonda and Carriol, both really, really lazy, too easy to play through them down the right-hand side as Ipswich were looking at it. The second goal, you'd expect better from an experienced defender like Bennett to get drawn out so high, get spun so easily. And then when he does, he has to do the professional thing and foul him and take the yellow card, and he doesn't.
That's it. There's just no attempt to even try and get after the player, is there? He just lets him run and just thinks, go on, then you throw on goal, go and score.
And the thing is, Matt, the thing that really annoyed me the most was that rightly we had a warning about 40 seconds into the game. They got in and the player slipped over. And if he hadn't, it'd have been 1-0. And it seemed like we didn't heed the warning from that. And yeah, it's not nice to say I walked out after 23 minutes and people, some people don't like it. They say, whatever, it's true. That's what a true fan, whatever. But, I think it shows I care. I've never done that before. And I walked away back to the train station at 3:30, actually feeling quite sad that I've had to do that. I felt the need to do that because, I've put so much money into this football club over the years, and it's not the fact we was losing 3-0 to Ipswich. It's just culmination of the things. And I think that was just the tipping point. I'm not wasting my time anymore watching that. And yeah, it was a shambles, and it didn't sound like the second half got particularly better, to be honest.
The only reason it was better was because we only conceded once. But yeah, there's a point that we all have, and I think obviously that's the point where the straw that broke the camel's back for Reece. And obviously, Jack, I'm going to come to you now. You've obviously been quite open in the fact that you've been boycotting this season. You've only seen 2 away games and you've taken 4 points from 6. So please come back. But that's the thing. Reece isn't happy that he's walked out after 23 minutes. Reece doesn't want to be walking out after 23 minutes. So I don't buy into this. You're not a loyal supporter because you've left. you clearly care because you've left and because it's hurting you so much that you just can't bear to do it anymore. And I say quite vocally on Twitter and on Facebook that we need to get behind Steve Evans. We had to get behind Steve Lovell. We had to get behind Adi Pennant because he's the manager at the end of the day. And regardless of what we think of him in terms of ability, I'm sure they're all trying their darndest to be make us the best version of a football club that we can be. But I think people get the wrong idea and think that we're happy that we're having to sit here and have these conversations, and that's not the case at all, is it?
No, I think the one thing I would say, Matt, is I do think to a certain degree he'd given up Evans. I don't know. My take on it is that he potentially was looking to leave. We're not in a particularly good situation when it comes to the transfer embargo. That's not an embargo. The squad itself isn't amazing, and I do think he'd given up, which. Kind of don't blame him, but you shouldn't be thinking like that as a football manager. But that was my general take on where he was at. And from my perspective, I'm not happy seeing us lose ever. But it's got to the point with me, with the way things are, that I think I'm getting to the point where when we went 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 down in the past, it would absolutely ruin my weekend. And I've gone beyond almost caring, which sounds bad. I love the club still. I want us to do well, but my weekends aren't ruined anymore. I'm lucky I've got a newborn, which is making it easier to not go to home games. But I'm at that point where I'm apathetic to it all, which is really sad, to be honest. More than anything else,
in a way, that makes it even worse. That you almost have stopped caring, but not in the sense that if you was there, you'd be cheering us on and getting behind us. But the fact that you probably don't miss it. That's the thing. And I
bought my boy a kit. I've bought him one of the Gills Legends things like behind you there from Jim. So I'm not going to stop supporting the club. I'm just not happy with the way it's being run, and that's where I am, mate. To be fair, but I think at the same time, he was a divisive figure, wasn't he, Evans? And I think we'll probably see some more fans back through the door. Ironically. Given what's going on, I think we'll actually see more fans through the door than we have in recent weeks because of him leaving.
And I think Steve Lovell, regardless of the fact that we've sacked him to replace him with Steve Evans, to then bring him back and save him because Steve Evans, and for whatever reasons, got us into this situation this season. And I'm certainly not saying it's all Steve Evans' fault. We've had horrendous injuries. We've had a pre-season completely ruined by COVID. So we was playing catch up and effectively probably played the first month of the season doing pre-season on the job. But it's very Gillingham, isn't it, that we've gone back to the man to save us who was deemed not good enough 2.5 years ago. However short term that's going to be Saturday. But Reece, we don't have a choice but to get behind him, do we? And I think Scally's been clever, and I think you've tweeted that, because we know that Paul Scally knows that by bringing back in someone who's a legend as a player and did all right under the circumstances as a manager, we have to remember he's not had any league experience apart from Gillingham. He did a fair enough job, I think, over the 2-year spell that he did. He kept us up after Adi Pennant was sacked. But he can't be the long-term plan, can he?
No, absolutely not. And don't get me wrong, when Lovell left towards the end, was it 18, 19 you said?
18, 19, yeah.
I was more than ready for him to move on. I've made my thoughts are quite clear on that at home we was incredibly poor to watch. I didn't enjoy watching us in that last season under Lovell, and I thought it was time to change. I like I said earlier, it's clever from Scally that he brings back a popular club figure, knowing people will say get behind it, and it sort of justifies him doing so. I'm not particularly happy to see Steve Lovell back, but if it's for one game, I understand it. But there's also the side of me that at the end of the day, whether Steve Lovell takes charge for this one game, the rest of the season, whether Lovell does one game, then Neil Smith comes in for the rest of the season, whether Michael Flynn, Neil Harris comes in for the rest of the season, if we get relegated, it is not on whoever manages the team from now to the end of the season. No. Damage is done now. If we stay up, it's a miracle. The damage is done.
I think this would be bigger than Burton last season. This would be, and this is biblical proportions if we manage to stay up. I think, isn't it, Jack? And to me, it's a little bit similar to when Mark Stimpson came in at the end of 07-08. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, just on the point, mate, of managers or the likes of Lovell. Mm-hmm. It's very strange. He's kind of got two appointments that he's done in his career, Scally. He's got the jobs for the boys back to the old guard, people that have never let him down before. And he's also brought in people in the past that have done, they've no real sort of actual link to the club. I say no link. Stimpson was on loan to us. Pulis was with us for a year, I think, as a player. So, but if you look back over the course of time, every manager that's done particularly well for the club, Evans for the first 2 seasons, Stimpson for 1 season, Edinburgh for most of his time, Pulis had no real actual link to the club.
Peter Taylor the first time.
Peter Taylor the first time, absolutely. I forgot about that. So everyone that's done well has been someone that's actually had a bit of a pedigree, and we've brought in that's been, that we've all kind of gone, yeah, that's a good appointment. And I think with Lovell, I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want Evans at the time. If I'm brutally honest, I was very close to buying a season ticket, believe it or not, a couple of seasons ago when Lovell, that end of the season with Lovell, where I thought, I might actually buy one. It put me off doing so, getting Evans in. I think he did a decent job for the first 2 seasons, but I look back on it now, and I know a lot of people will disagree with this, but I don't think it was worth getting rid of Lovell in the end. Reece will disagree clearly, but for me, it's just the merry-go-round that is Gillingham. It's a very, very, dare I say, scally appointment, or one half of his appointments anyway, where it doesn't tend to work. Pennock, this is Pennock 2.0 is probably what I would say is what it feels like. I hope he does well, and he's on a hiding to nothing, and we're probably not going to get out of trouble. So he's kind of got a free pass at this, but I hope he employs someone that's not linked to the club, that tries to get us out of this mess, which they probably won't, but then at least builds blocks for next season when we're in League Two.
So that brings us on to contenders then. Obviously, we've seen, one betting market, I think, and then it's all mysteriously disappeared late last night or this morning and can't be found anywhere. I've tried numerous betting sites throughout the day and can't find any market. I know that someone tweeted Sky Bet, requested a bet and asked, and they said they weren't offering it. Someone else asked Paddy Power, they weren't offering it, which is interesting. Maybe that was because they knew Steve Lovell was being appointed on this 1 game basis. We shall see. The 5 that are at the top of the market, though, are all have links to Gillingham Football Club, whether it's an ex-player or an ex-manager. We've got Michael Flynn as favourite, or Neil Smith, sorry, then Michael Flynn. We've got Steve Bruce. People seriously think that that's available, then give your head a wobble without being rude, because that's fanciful. I think he was on about 8 million a year at Newcastle. So,
to be fair, he's not short of a pound or two. He might want to work for nothing,
or he could come and buy us.
That'd be well. I don't think that'd meet the valuation. To be fair,
well, it might meet the valuation. It probably wouldn't meet Paul Scally's valuation. And who else have we got on there? Neil Harris had a spell as a player. So there's plenty of Gillingham links in those that are high at the market. I think we've all spoken throughout the day when we've been setting this up. We're all agreed that the number one choice for all 3 of us would be Michael Flynn, who had done a brilliant job at Newport. Reece, I come to you. I mean, he was appointed with about 10 games to go, I think, end of 16-17, and Newport were 7-8 points adrift. That's the kind of recovery we're going to need over the next 22 games, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely. And yeah, obviously, maybe it is a touch ironic that we've just sort of questioned the club's concept of going back 12 players all the time. But, Flynn's a different example to your Hessenthalers, your Pennocks, your Lovells. He was here for a few years, not a particularly long time.
Yeah, and I think the ones we have issues with the ones that have already had a go as manager, aren't they? Sorry to I think the ones we have the issue with, the ones that keep coming back as managers, caretaker, gangs of 4, interim and all that type of thing, rather than those that have just been players.
Yeah, and Flynn's not one that would be plucking straight out of non-league. I had never managed in the Football League before. Like you say, he took over Newport in a very similar situation to us, albeit in the league below. I take that on board, but the job he did was incredible. And it wasn't just the fact that he kept them up that year. He then the next season had them up competing in the playoffs, challenging up the top of the league all season, combining that with an excellent FA Cup run 2 years running as well, I think. I just think he ticks a lot of boxes. I really do. From what I've seen of him, he's a passionate character. I think the fans would get behind him. Whether or not he'd be tempted by us, whether he sees himself as a little bit higher than bottom of League One club, I don't know. But for me, it'd be worth asking the question, that's for sure.
Yeah, because he's been out of work for, I think it was start of October. I've written it down here. Yeah, 1st of October he left Newport. So he's been out of work for 3 months now, effectively. So we, like Reece has said, Jack, we've surely got to go and at least ask the question and touch base.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of an Edinburgh style appointment, given the place he'd be coming from, albeit it's not there anymore. But I think the reason why we've listed those names that are ex-Gillingham that are on that list is because I think without being too churlish, I don't see anyone wanting the job really. With anyone with any kind of reputation, we'll be seeing the club. We're walking into a club that's divided anyway because of the fan base and what's going on. We've got no money to spend on people. We're 7 points from safety. I don't think anyone that's any good. I say any good. I think Flynn is good, but anyone that's not linked to the club previously, that's got a very good profile, would want it, and I don't particularly blame him, to be honest. So I think Flynn's, with respect to him, possibly the best of a bad bunch. But at the same time, if he was still in his job at Newport and we hired him, we'd all be singing from the rooftops at that. The fact that he's out of work is again not a great sign, to be brutally honest. And
did he get sacked or did he leave? I thought he walked away from Newport personally, but so it's slightly different. Obviously, he's still out of work. I get that, but it's different if he decided to just walk away rather than the chairman's pulled the plug on him. But yeah, I see what you're saying. We're never going to be. I mean, there's names on that list that, like we've said about Steve Bruce, are completely fanciful. Someone said Paul Cook today. I think he's well out of our league financially. We're not going to get him. There's other names on there.
Shouldn't be though, mate. That's the thing. Like we're in League One, albeit probably not going to be next season. But we should, we should be a decent draw. We're the only league team in Kent. I always say it. We should be. We shouldn't be sitting here resigned to the fact we're going to get in an ex-player or someone out of work. We should, and I think hopefully he heeds that and actually looks and casts the net a little bit wider with next season more in mind than anything else. Like you said, a very Stimson feel to it, and look what happened there.
I think the problem is, though, at the moment, is that, especially with the timing of this all happening as well, anyone of any sort of credibility, and it wouldn't surprise me if Flynn would even fall into this category, Scally gets them in the office for a chat. They go, right, okay, we're in this position. I need bodies. What can you do for me? Well, not a lot, because you're under a transfer embargo. You can only bring a couple in if you get a couple out. And even then, it's only on loans or for 6 months. And they'll just walk out the door and say, do you know what? This isn't for me. It makes appointing a manager a really difficult task. So I don't think we've helped ourselves at all in that regard.
So that brings me back to Saturday, just to rewind 2 days. 2 o'clock, team gets announced. Carl Dempsey's on the bench. 2:40, give or take, Doug Hudson stands up and announces that Carl Dempsey's no longer on the bench. He's injured in the warm-up. Now, there's rumours going around that a League One club have made a bid. It's then been rejected. League One club have then come back with a second bid. So we can take it at face value that Carl Dempsey's pulled up with a hamstring problem or whatever it is in the warm-up. But the thing for me that made it slightly weird was that Harvey Lintop was already out warming up. There was 8 substitutes warming up with the squad before that was announced. So for me, has something gone on there? But he's back training today to thicken the plot further. But would Carl Dempsey being sold solve that problem a little bit, in the sense that we could maybe pay off the loan and then at least the new man coming in has almost got at least a clean slate and something to do, and because the embargo that's not an embargo, that effectively is an embargo because it has all the same rules, means that we could have that lifted and we'd be able to be a bit more flexible and have a bit more wiggle room in the transfer window, albeit for only potentially 2 weeks if Steve Lovell's going to be in charge this Saturday.
I don't think it would bring much in the way of wiggle room in terms of being able to bring players in of great quality, but it would get us out of the embargo, I think. Although that being said, I think Charlton bid 200 grand for him last year. I can't imagine it would be much higher than that now, given that there's the time left on his contract. But on the last chat we did, gents, I did say I'm in favour of selling players when they're running their contracts down. So I've got to stick by my philosophy that I think obviously let's get a decent fee. And Scally's a lot of things, but he's a bloody good negotiator. I think, he doesn't take a poor bid, does he, in many cases? So, if we do let him go, I'm sure it'll be for half decent money. And I think it will get us out of the embargo. I don't think it will lead us to bringing great players in. I don't who permanently anyway would want to join us at the moment is probably what I would say.
Oh no, I get that, and I meant more in the fact that we could at least get bodies in, like Reece said. We're not going to go and sign, top end League One midfielders, unfortunately, because we're third bottom or whatever it is and 7 points adrift with less than half a season to go. So no one in their right mind is going to go and sign a long-term contract with us at the moment. But at least I meant we could sign people out the window if we suffered injuries again and that type of thing. and it would be slightly more appealing than the situation that Reece just gave us a couple of minutes ago. The other two, obviously, Reece, are Verdane Oliver and Jack Tucker are probably the only two really at the moment that would offer us anything in terms of a half decent fee coming in. The only thing against Big V is obviously 30 now, so Jack Tucker for me is probably the cash cow, without wanting to put it any blunter than that. Could you see us selling him this window? I think Charlton again, or Brentford. I think Brentford came in this time last year, didn't they? January window, unless I've dreamt that. And I'm sure Charlton were interested in him along with Carl Dempsey, like Jack's mentioned in the summer. So, and someone on the Facebook page, ironically today, put that Johnny Jackson had been spotted at the stadium this morning and thought that he was going to become the new manager, until I pointed out that he was actually appointed Charlton boss on a permanent basis in December. So now it got me thinking, why is Johnny Jackson at Gillingham today if he has been spotted? It can only be to discuss trying to buy some of our players, surely.
Yeah, like you say, it's those three that are the ones. Just to add to what you said about Dempsey as well, and the whole sort of confusion of the saga of Saturday, even if you think back to the week before, he was on the bench, he travelled, but never got on the pitch. Now, if I'm Steve Evans, knowing the situation we're in, we won one game in 18, 19 games, so his job's under pressure. We were 4 or 5 points from safety. He's our best player. We need results. If I was Steve Evans, I wouldn't care. I'd have played him. So the fact that he didn't even get on the pitch said to me that I think there is something going on. Big V, I agree. I don't think it's worth us selling Big V this month. I think he is our one hope. The fact that the hardest job in football is sticking the ball in the net. We've not done it very well this season. I don't think he's played as well this season as he did last season so far. But if anyone's going to score, it is going to be him. And like you say, his age combined with a running down contract means he's not worth a lot. Tucker, yeah, if the offer was right, I would sell him. Again, look, our defensive record has been a shambles this season. He's played pretty much every game. Again, he's not been as good as he was last season.
I was going to say, let's hope
we can get money and avoid losing him for nothing.
Saturday.
Exactly. You know, I don't what he's worth now. Honestly, I couldn't put a figure on that. But if an offer come in that was sensible, I think we'd have to consider it, because, you know, I think the three of us are in pretty much unanimous agreement that barring a miracle, we are getting relegated. So it's not like selling Tucker is going to be the difference between us going down or not, because we're heading in that direction anyway. And I think in terms of Oliver, Tucker, I think for this level anyway, a centre-back's easier to replace than a goal scorer.
Yeah. I would say that we've got 2 home games coming up. If we win both of them and the other teams around us lose, then we may well stay up. I think our season hinges on these next 2 games, in my opinion.
I think it's 3 now, isn't it? 3 of the next 4, because I think Crewe's just being arranged for the first week of February. So if you say Burton, Shrewsbury and Crewe are absolutely monumental.
They're winnable games as well, really, in normal circumstances. At the moment, I can't see us beating anyone, but in normal circumstances, you'd say them 3 home games are very winnable. And you'd hope that there'd be some sort of bounce when it comes to a new manager, because there typically is at least some sort of bounce, albeit a new old manager as it is.
Yeah, you're right. We need something. And yeah, if you're going to pick any of the next 5, it's got to be them 3. I think Oxford and Wigan are essentially free swings. We're expected to get beat and probably get beat comfortably. If we manage to pick up something from either of them, then it'll be a bonus. But we've got a target. I mean, I think Crewe are doomed as much as us, aren't they? Them, Doncaster and us are the 3 that look cut adrift. But yeah, if you could pick up 4 points from Shrewsbury and Burton, beat Crewe, 7 from 9, suddenly we might at least have our head just above water, or at least be able to get to the surface. But at the moment, we're sinking without trace, unfortunately, aren't we? Right. Yes. We've all spoken about who we want. We're now going to talk about who we think it probably will be. And yes, you've guessed it, it is an ex-player. I think he's been rumoured to have been at the ground quite a few occasions this season in club tie and blazer, and that is former Bromley boss Neil Smith. I did a little bit of research this afternoon and this evening, just to compare him and Michael Flynn, obviously slightly lower level. Flinney's record was 191 league games, 78 wins at 41%, at a rate of 1.5 per game with his time at Newport. Neil Smith, 208 games, 79 wins at 38%, at 1.39 points per game, which would not be enough by my calculations to keep us above 50 points. Reece, thoughts on Neil. So I'm going to come to you first, Reece, purely on the basis that, like you said in the group chat this afternoon, you don't remember Neil Smith as a player. Me and Jack do. So there's not this ex-player sort of mystery around it to you. It's just a non-league manager coming in, and it's perceived as being the easy option.
Yeah. I warmed to the idea of it more once I see that Lovell would come back. He hasn't done it before.
That's purely what I said. At least he's not had a go previously.
In all seriousness, like the term Jack used at the start, it would be a very scally appointment. It'd be a cheap, lazy, predictable appointment. But also on the flip side, like we've spoken to, is he all we can attract in the current state we're in? Who knows? The key for me is if it is going to be him, because like I said earlier, whoever takes over the rest of the season from now, it's not their fault if we get relegated, but don't commit to him long term. Give him to the end of the season. If we still end up 7, 8, 9, 10 points adrift by the end of the season, we know it's not going to work. If he comes in, we get some results. We still go down, but he's given us half a chance. We stick with it until a couple of games left and go down by a point or two. Then I could see he's probably justified the chance to have a go at it in League Two. But if we're going to go down that road, I don't think we can commit to anything long term. And if we do, don't make the mistake we made with Pennock and reward failure by giving him a 2-year contract at the end of the 6-month spell.
Yeah, I was going to say, come to you now then, Jack, obviously, because we appointed Adi Pennock January 2017 and we were 8 points away from the relegation zone. I think it wasn't 8 from the playoffs. We ended up staying up on goal difference on the final day. But obviously, anyone who comes in now, like Reece has said, is going to be doing it the other way round. We're essentially relegated in everyone's head, apart from hopefully whoever comes in and the players. I'm hoping that they're still got enough about them to think that it's possible. So yeah, so say, for instance, we get to May and we get relegated on goal difference and it is Neil Smith that's given us a chance of staying up. What would be your thoughts? Did you then say, right, we'll give him another 12 months and give him a chance in League Two, or would you still, unless he keeps us in League One, go, no, we need to go elsewhere?
I'd say go elsewhere, but I think I'm probably in the minority there. I don't think you should reward failure. It's a hypothetical question, really, isn't it? Because he's not got the job. But I think, from my perspective, I think, you know, the fact that he's been around the ground for a long time, like Reece said, you know, it's a typical appointment in the sense of, you know, that he's an ex-player and that he's been, and that we're cut adrift. So therefore, who else would want it? But we weren't cut adrift earlier in the season when he was suited and booted at the ground. So it does suggest he's been in the offing for quite a while. Seems quite similar to the way we had it with Evans, where he was at Lovell's games quite regularly. So,
and I think Adi Pennock was at Justin Edinburgh's games.
Yeah, he was.
So
he was.
The third or fourth time this has happened in the last 5 seasons. It's not a new thing with Paul Scally.
No, and I think for me, I like Neil Smith as a player. He's a nice bloke. Obviously you've talked with him.
Yeah, he's a top fella, yeah.
No, I've got nothing against the bloke personally. I just think from a CV standpoint, I mean, it'd be a miles better appointment than Pennock, by the way, because he's worked better on less money and actually done well, you know, with Bromley. Whereas with Forest Green, let's not even talk about Pennock, but it'd be a better appointment than that. But that it is scraping the barrel with respect to him. You know, it's polar opposites to Evans, and look where we are with Evans. So we might get the new manager bounce. I struggle to see anyone coming in and doing a decent job at the moment. I just really hope it's not an ex-player, jobs for the boys, but it appears it's already going to be that. I think we all probably agree that Lovell's probably going to get it to the end of the season, unless he loses all 3 or all 2 games he gets.
The thing is, someone could actually come in and do a half decent job and we still get relegated. That's the trouble, because we are so cut adrift at the moment. I mean, Neil Smith could come in and take 1.4 points per game and that still sees us get relegated. Or, you know, Steve Lovell and Alex McDonald might end up as player manager. We never know, do we? You tend to sort of expect the unexpected with Gillingham, but at the same time, you expect the very expected at the same time as well, in terms of ex-players and stuff like that.
I'd judge it on performances, to be fair. I wouldn't just blanket, actually. I wouldn't just say, no, we wouldn't have him next season if we did get him in and we did go down by a point or 2. But it's just all very kind of, it's not very infusing, is it?
No, that's been the whole season, unfortunately, hasn't it? It's just sort of worn us all down over the last 6-7 months. It's not just that suddenly happened in the last few weeks. It's been a continuation of everything since someone started doing them chairman's chats, unfortunately.
The thing I would say as well is that regardless of whether we sort of, I don't know, the genie rubs his magic lamp and we somehow pull off a miracle, and stay in League One, and whether we're in League Two, whoever is in charge next season needs to have something about them. Because I looked through the squad the other day, and unless my calculations of it is wrong, we do not have a single player under contract for next season. I mean, consider the financial position we seem to be in as well. With dwindling crowds, a lot of people saying they don't want season tickets anymore. It's not going to get